Thank you for joining us. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Ehmke.
And Justin Tyson.
You're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast.
We have a legend in the building.
A legend. Living
Justin
legend.
Mother effing Tyson. Justin, how the hell are you? No, I'm just kidding.
Just kidding. We don't care. Don't tell us. Don't tell our listeners.
You're a has-been. That never has been.
God damn.
Justin's been our producer. You guys have heard him on some previous episodes. Yep. He was out at Diesel Power Challenge with me. We're just sitting in our new studio today, and, well, the mic was on, so we made him talk.
And he's blushing.
Hey, guys, right at the top of the show, I wanted to let all of our listeners know about our Diesel Performance Podcast Q&A Facebook group. I know that's a long name. We'll come up with a better name, I promise.
I think we need to leave it right where it is because it's not simple, but it's to the point.
Right. It's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, my phone's blowing up constantly, Paul. If I can get off the reminder of that, that would be mint. But everyone that's, engaging and posting on that, we appreciate it. All of our listeners that are listening to this episode and future episodes to come, please go on there, request a follow. We'll accept you. If you have a pulse, you're on. Yeah. Paul has low standards. We got you.
Yeah, that's why I'm willing to work with Chris. You walked right into that one, good. Yeah. Okay, so hey, speaking of that Facebook group, I pulled WC Fabs from Facebook from the group. Cool. So if you're already on the group, you already saw this post. I actually tagged somebody to already go in and kind of help answer this, but it came through and it says, I have a 17 F250 Lariat that is stock. Is there anything I can do to improve the exhaust sound without voiding warranty? Chris, we deal with this one so commonly.
Dude, there's so many options now. All joking aside, the truck, the DPF on these trucks, right? So the factory emissions acts is more or less like a muffler. So it quiets the engine down. There's a lot of DPF back exhaust systems on the market that maybe with the faintest ear to the tailpipe, you might notice something very slightly.
I don't think you'll change volume, but you'll change tone. It will sound different, not louder.
But not to the extent of what it would be like with a straight pipe altogether on the truck.
Of course, yeah.
Which is what I think a lot of guys are after. Plus, the thing that we need to keep in mind is on the newer trucks, they're just quieter altogether. So even when you do go and do a full exhaust, they're not going to sound like a 7.3 or a 6-liter for that matter.
Right.
But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that you could do, but you could try a DPF back. It might change, it'll change the aesthetics. Truck will look a little different.
Now, Justin, you're a little bit outside of the diesel market from your day-to-day operation. So you're not a guy who passionately and regularly goes to hang out at diesel events outside of work, although you're around diesel all day long. What are your thoughts about the way a deleted 2.8 liter sounds compared to an emissions equipped or even the bigger trucks, even if we're getting into a Duramax or a Cummins?
Talk about a 6.7 Cummins with a 5-inch turbo back.
I've driven deleted and non-deleted, customer trucks, not customers, but people wanting tunes and whatnot coming back. And
that's
essentially, smells like shit.
The truck or
loud.
the exhaust?
It's loud.
Yes.
It's rough.
The thing I would say with the newer trucks, there's a drone.
Yeah.
You get this crazy drone. The displacement of the motors are increasing. Where the truck makes its peak torque and power bands dropping a little bit to make it run a little more efficient.
Right.
And man, you get a trailer behind you and you go on the open road and man, it's aggressive.
It's fun in your driveway. That's usually what I think about a straight pipe exhaust. In your driveway, sitting around with your buddies, listening to your truck run, you rap it one or two times, you're like, yeah, she bad. And then you live in it, and you're like, nah, I'm good.
No, dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, then look at a non-emissions truck, Jim Rennan works with us over at Calibrated Power Duramax Tuner. Beautiful 5.9 mega cab, right? He has 2 high-flow 4-inch mufflers on that thing to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds actually not bad.
It's probably my favorite sounding Cummins of that year.
Yeah, just quiet.
Because it's the only one I've ever seen that actually had mufflers.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 on my 07. I did, but it was a 4-inch. He has a 5. I think the 5 makes it.
Yeah.
But we were talking about adding on a 3rd one.
That'd be, I don't know. We'll see how
You'll
that goes.
You'll see. This doesn't sound like a damn Prius. I'm just joking.
Hey, speaking of a damn Prius, we got no, I'm just joking. Okay, so we do have one of our diesel stories sponsored by Exergy Performance. This one is right at home for us. So this is actually our boss,
Jamie Curley,
talking about his truck. Now, you guys may have seen Jamie on Duramax Tuner's Diesel Insights video talking about recreational towing. So he's got a 15 LML. He tows a huge gooseneck camper with it.
Yeah.
So he put some real weight behind this thing. He really pushes this truck. And I think what's really cool here is we recently threw an emissions-equipped twin-turbo kit on it, and he had to go tow on the weekend.
With a bunch of other modifications.
Right,
so it wasn't just that.
So we threw a whole pile of parts at the truck, and then nobody was available all weekend for him to ask any questions to. So just like a regular customer.
No one answers. Jamie, we're sorry, man. You're the best boss I could ever have. But, like, I don't answer your call on the weekends.
We straight up treat him like a customer on the weekend. No, I'm just joking. Listen, he had a lot of questions. He had a lot of things that he wasn't 100% on. And so I think this is a really cool story of what a regular everyday guy who throws some huge list of parts at his truck kind of walk you through what did that feel like the first time he was out actually pushing that truck.
Yeah, it was a totally different experience to be expected. What I learned from it was probably overcautious, and after the post analysis of the poll, as I call it, talking to people that a bit more technical on that side of the business, like Nick, like, hey, this is post turbo EGT, this is at the manifold, these are the numbers I'm running. And, pretty much he called me a pussy and said, hey, you could have pushed the truck a lot harder. But overall, it was a very positive experience.
Well, walk me through that first day. So you get the build done. It's a weekend. It's after hours, so there's essentially nobody available.
Right.
You hook up to a camper, and you got a pretty massive camper.
Yeah. So camper itself is 43 foot, call it 15K empty. So, throw all the shit you go with camping and all the other funsies, and you're probably good 15.7, maybe 16K. Prior to that, just tuned LML with a lift pump. The build was a 10 mil Exergy, our DT twin kit, built trans, Garin X converter. So it's got all the power, it's got all the support it should need to pull the trailer as it is. So the first day getting the truck, working out a couple wrinkles as to be expected. The power band was entirely different. So where the truck made power, with the second charger spooling up, where boost was coming in, and entirely different environment. And that's with nothing behind it. So building up to that, I was trying to learn, the driving habits of the truck itself, shift patterns, where boost was making, because boost is entirely different now than it was prior to. So armed with all those, all those pieces of information, thought I was prepared and ready to, take my rig to Door County. It's about a 5-hour pull if you're lucky, no traffic. It was, I thought, kind of a good first pull, because there's some local small highway and then interstate driving. So truck's going to operate under 60 and over 70. So I'm like, great. So start out. First experience was merging onto I-90, heading to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And first thing I noticed is when the truck is under load, it builds boost really quick. And I'm all about the NVR, noise, vibration, harshness. As a seasoned puller, you listen to the truck more than you drive the truck. I got my eye on my edge monitor. I got my ears tuned into the truck itself. And I hear the second charger kick in and whistle. I'm like, that's great. And I throttle down to what I feel is the appropriate applied pressure, which is typically 40-45% for acceleration. And charger lights up, 30 plus pounds of boost. And again, old me is like, back off. So that was my first impression. On the highway, ample power. Again, it was managing the perception of high post-turbo EGT. So in this particular calibration, I had EG back down, not in the file, because again, I'm still learning the driving habits of the vehicle itself. So I was taught anything post 1150, 1200 degrees post-turbo, like that's not sustained. You just, you can hold it there for a little while, but the sustained, you want to back off. Well, when you're running twice as much fuel in 10 mil and you're running twice as much boost, it builds that post-turbo EGT pretty quick. The delta between non-twin kit and twin kit, non-twin kit delta post-turbo EGT at the manifold EGT is between 250 and 300 degrees. What I found is that narrowed it to 100 to 175 degrees. So now I'm pedaling the truck trying to keep the manifold EGTs at 1250, 1300 or under, and I'm seeing my post turbo at 1150. And 1150 sustained to me is abort, right? So now I'm having to drive around those behaviors. And again, this is where Nick, post analysis, like, oh no, you had twice as much air going through there. Therefore, that delta can be squeezed a bit higher. So down there, pull was good. I didn't have any issues, no mechanical issues to be expected. Got no codes, ample power, almost pulled 10 miles to the gallon, pulling a rig and it's hand calculated. It's no bullshit. That's not on the Dream-O-meter. That's me calculating it. And yeah, I mean, it was what was nice about it is some of the things I would worry about without that setup, I didn't necessarily have to worry about with this setup. One of them being power, plenty of power. So slight grades, passing in traffic, you always have to kind of look ahead a mile or two to make sure you got enough lane to get over. Truck was very reactive and pulled fine on the way down there. So spend some time with the family, come back, right? Probably the worst pulling conditions I ever had to pull in the 20 years I've been pulling a trailer, let alone this rig. I was facing a 20 to 40 mile an hour wind gust, 20 mile an hour sustained headwind on the rig. I mean, we're talking a fifth wheel here, so it's like pushing a brick through the air. And I'm an advocate of using all 6 gears in the transmission. I feel if Allison put it in there, I'm going to use it. And when you got something like that behind you with those types of variables, it means more fuel, more acceleration. So as I said before in the beginning comments, I like to pull about 40% applied. And that runs around 80, 70, 80, 85 mm3. I'm squeezing her down, and I'm cresting 100, 110 mm3. And now the EGTs go along with it, right? Well, again, that's where I'm not in tune with the truck. I don't have all the understanding of what abort means. So I kicked her down to fifth gear. Well, then fifth gear means higher RPMs, right? So fifth gear, higher RPMs, heat rises. Now I like to keep my truck 190 or sub 90. So now it's running 195. I'm looking at what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? Long story short, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just wasn't pushing the truck to its limits. There was ample opportunity to push that truck even further than what it was. Now we're not talking about sustained 100 plus MM3, but when we're going up grades or fighting those headwinds, to me, old school was old setup. Yeah, back off. But long story short, she made it home just fine, and yeah. No worries. So I'm looking forward to the next one. If I can get my wife to agree to let me pull again.
So you had mentioned that your power band changed.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. It comes on sooner?
Yeah, so boost comes in much, much sooner. So the way we have the truck set up now, and we honestly have it on a very conservative tune. We have not dynoed the truck yet. Expectation is going to be somewhere in the mid-6s. I don't think it's there right now. And the reason being is I didn't want to put an aggressive tune in it and then go, on my first pull 6 hours away and then, have something that's not dialed in the right way or me not treating the truck the right way. But yeah, the truck makes much more power up front. So your down low power, because of the boost coming in so much sooner, the truck is, it's very low end quick. Mid-range, kind of about the same. And then on the end of the spectrum, on the top end, lugging the truck is much funner now because there's more boost that comes in. It's just finding that RPM band. So we're still working through some transcals to get the converter to lock up just at the right moment. But the truck really pulls hard now. So when that boost comes in, truck really livens up. So yeah, it totally different driving habit than it was when it was stock with just a tune on it.
Now, you mentioned you got up to 10 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
Most people who we talk to in our day-to-day real-world job would think that was atrocious to get 10 miles a gallon. But you're talking about a 43-foot brick pushing through the air. What did you used to get? What was the low end of that?
You're lucky if you got 8 miles a gallon. 6 to 8 miles a gallon was a traditional pull. In a previous one of our previous YouTube videos, I don't know anybody out there that's a recreational puller that like kind of scripts out what his fuel economy is going to be. Like, dude, you just want to get there. You want to be safe, want to have fun, and have a beer. You don't give a shit about how much, how many miles a gallon I get, as long as I don't break anything. And I got some cool suds at the end of the line. That's all I worry about. But yeah, I was just curious on what I was going to get as far as fuel economy because of the new setup, and it was noticeable in the gauge. And why I say that is I've made this trip so many times, and I know where I got to get fuel. And when I thought I had to get fuel, I looked down. I'm like, no, I don't have to get fuel. I made it all the way to my destination without having to fill up.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I had a quarter tank of reserve, so it's 256 miles, a 31-gallon tank, and I had a quarter tank left. So I didn't have the same variables I had coming on the way back. There wasn't a headwind. It was calm day, but it was probably optimal pulling conditions, and for me to pull off almost 10 miles a gallon. Pretty cool.
That's so wild that you ended up getting like the best day to pull and then the worst day to pull,
right?
like in the same trip. Tell me about that difference. What did it feel like as the driver, not necessarily as an employee here at Duramax Tuner, but as the driver of being behind a truck with a fresh build on it, coming home, seeing some of those gauges?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of money in that truck, so I'm like, this better work. and by the way, my wife's sitting next to me, and she's like, this better work. It was, again, apprehension in the beginning because I didn't know what to expect. I knew what to expect without the rig loaded, but with it loaded, the first hour is a bit contentious, but then as I got to learn the truck and understand what it can and cannot do, or the reaction, when I throttle down or don't throttle enough, what the truck will do. Once I got past that, it was like, and that's like I tried to make kind of this impression when we talked about it on the in the YouTube video, like. Pulling is an experience, is a journey, right? And the last thing you want to do is be frustrated over it or let your passengers see you're frustrated over it because, you got 16,000 pounds behind you. The truck is 10. That's 16. Like, you're rolling down the road. There's some hazards in front of you if you don't get this thing right. And my wife is always the first to pick up on those. Like, why are your knuckles white? Why won't you talk to me? It just totally changed the experience. So all positive. And looking at the gauges just endorsed, what I was feeling, what I wasn't hearing, and what I was seeing the truck do.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, no worries, man. Anytime.
All right, and so that was Jamie telling his story. Chris, man, I think one of the things that I laugh about is, again, we have people like Jamie who's been around diesel trucks for a long time. He was a customer before he was an employee, so he knows this industry pretty well, and yet I love the detail of the numbers where we're recording this story weeks after it's actually happened. He can still tell you the exact temperature everything went to.
We just listened to the recording, and that's the second time I had to hear that story, right? And it never ceased to amaze. Like, he is definitely an owner-operator, I guess you can say. Like, he knows his numbers. He had an LMM prior to that.
Yeah.
Really nice crew short, two-wheel drive truck. He didn't know it was two-wheel drive when he bought it. No. Anyways, no, it's a nice truck. I wanted to buy it before I bought the Fortune.
Yeah.
But, he was really in tune with that truck. Then he gets into the LML, and he didn't just hook up a trailer to that and start towing. He drove it around, got acclimated with it, then hooked up to a trailer before doing anything else, got acclimated with that, then tuned the truck, had a better understanding. Like, he does things in stages, and a lot of us at the shop, we give him a lot of flack for it. But at the same times, I don't know to the T what my truck is going to run at. I know what oil pressure, oil temperature, trans temperature. I know how the truck fuels and boost pressures. Like, I've tuned these trucks in the past. I know what the truck should run like, but not to that extent.
I think it's funny, too, because I think, like, right after a tune, I could go out in my vehicle and tell you, okay, here's where everything should be. Here's the gauges I'm looking for. And then unless there's an actual problem, I probably don't even look at my gauges for the next 6 months.
No.
Like, legitimately, like, no idea what my average boost is while driving 60 miles an hour down the road because I don't fucking care.
No,
it
that's a variable. That number varies though too.
Right, of course. Yeah,
but I mean, he is like in tune to a T. Like, he knows that truck inside and out. And kudos to him. I mean, he makes me want to be more aware and alert about what's going on. So
just in general in life, I agree. Well, hey, guys, we know you're waiting to hear from our special guest today. Our special guest is always sponsored by Calibrated Power. We're so glad to have them on board to help make this show possible. So without any further ado, here's KJ Jones. All right, and Calibrated Power presents our special guest of the week, and that's going to be KJ Jones from Diesel Power Magazine. KJ, how the hell are you?
I'm good, Paul. What's happening, man? I'm all right. Everything is good on this side.
I love to hear it, man. Now, KJ, you, Justin, and I got to hang out for a week. Justin Tyson, of course, joining us for this interview.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Justin.
Hey, KJ.
Now, Justin was out there with me all week covering Diesel Power Challenge 2019 at Bandimere Speedway and over at ATS Diesel, kind of tracking with all of the event and seeing how it went down. But, KJ, we wanted to get you back on now that the show's over and we've talked to a couple of competitors. You've seen more of these than just about anybody else. What'd you think of this year's Diesel Power Challenge?
Man, I tell you what, this I said this last year, that it was the best Diesel Power Challenge that I've been a part of, but I have to say that this year topped last year. Last year's was awesome, Diesel Power Challenge 2018, but Diesel Power Challenge 2019, I guess it's just a next rung on a ladder from 2018 as far as, you know, the caliber of participant, the caliber of truck that was competing, just the overall organization and the way things ran, just operations from an operations standpoint. This is all, I guess you could say, you know, my beautiful dream coming together from the first time we did Diesel Power Challenge and I was involved with it to present. It's like we got to keep doing these things and making some changes and making tweaks here and there to make it better. And this year, I knock on wood and say we knocked it out of the park, man. All bases were covered and everybody was happy, and it was a really killer event.
For sure.
Got to agree with that. It was a huge event, so it's one of these things where it's not just three things. You're not just going to drag race. You're not just going to sled pull. You're doing all of it, man. And so these competitors, they got to have this wide range of expertise with their truck. And in the past, I think what I've noticed as a fan, as a viewer at home, is that there always seems to be like either a breakout performance or somebody who's just, their truck is so fast they were able to kind of dominate throughout some of the speed events, and that kind of carried them through it. This year, I think we mathematically just can say this was the highest level of competition we've at least seen in recent history. 7 trucks over 1,000 horsepower uncorrected on ATS's dyno.
That's correct. That's correct. That's right. That's right, man. That was a mind blower right there. You know, I went in to the competition hoping that, you know, we get these entries and guys and people say they have pardon me, they say they have trucks that you know, are capable of making 1,000 horsepower. You know, that's of course the magic number in this thing now, but they're capable of making 1,000 horsepower, and we're taking into account that they don't live in 5,800 to 6,000 or better feet of altitude as well. You know what I mean? These are guys that are coming from other parts of the country where their number they're presenting to us for consideration is A, probably corrected, and B, it's certainly at a lower altitude than Denver area. So for 7 trucks to eclipse 1,000 horsepower, as you say, at ATS Diesel Performance, but, you know, basically in that lack of air and high altitude place, that's just phenomenal, dude. That was out of control.
Wild.
I thought we started to see that pattern even on the first day emerge. I know you and I went back and forth, and I was like, man, getting it down to just like 1 or 2 faults, and you had told me, no, Paul, some guys actually go with 0 penalties on the mile per gallon test or the drivability test. And I didn't believe you. I was like, man, I haven't seen that. I don't remember that happening. But sure as shit, we saw, I think, 4 guys go through with 0 penalties right off the bat on day 1.
Yeah, they came in and got it figured out. It's kind of funny to watch when that goes down. You know, they do the practice, the demonstration run with the ATS truck, and Jaron did a good job. He just got in the seat, and first time he had ever seen it, and he did a decent job, but he gave the competitors a good scope of, okay, this is what it is, and it's something that you have to focus on and concentrate to get through. But with that said, there were guys that actually did that, man, and they nailed it. You know, it's a workout on the truck, and it's definitely a workout on the driver, because you have to stay really focused on that screen and the course, if you will, as the truck, simulated rolls over this 20-minute course. So for guys to be that dialed in to go through with no penalties, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, now, one of the rumors I heard floating around that day, I want to get some clarification for you. That course or that simulation essentially is 7 miles of driving.
That's probably right. I think it's between 7 and 11 miles of actual driving. The length, 20-minute length or 21-minute length, is based on the speed. For the most part, there are the 60-mile-an-hour or 65-mile-an-hour stretches, but for the most part, that's really a sustained 30 or so or 40-mile-an-hour trip. So that's why it takes so long to get through. But yeah, it's between, I think, 7 and 11 miles, actual miles of driving.
It's so funny, KJ. I remember the first time we had you on the show, and I asked you about this test, and I said, it's a stupid test. I don't get it. Who cares? And then you go there, and you see how hard it is. You see how frustrated guys are with it. You see how tough it is on the trucks. And all of a sudden, you start to really bring that specific portion of the event into perspective there, and understand, okay, this is actually a great test to measure drivability, because it pushes the truck and the driver to their absolute limits.
No doubt about it. I'm very proud of it, because prior to my coming on Diesel Power, and everyone knows, if you will, the history was there was this beautiful cruise through the Rockies, and the trucks were on the road, and all of that stuff. And I'm sure it was wonderful. I wasn't part of the magazine then, but I'm sure it was a great thing. But we've had to move past that for various reasons. We've had to move past that and come up with a way to measure drivability, or to just evaluate drivability, and to try to see what type of fuel consumption is happening as well. And this is, and by competitor admission, which is fulfilling for me, by competitor admission, this is a true validating way to do that without ruffling any feathers at all. Hopefully not hurting too much equipment, etc. So I'm extremely proud of it, and I think we're going to go forward in this manner with doing that type of test. Maybe tweak it a little bit here or there to just really, really, really nail it. But right now, it's pretty solid. And when competitors get out of their truck saying, "Man, that was hard. That was nothing easy about it," that says it all for me.
I love it when so many guys tell me, "Man, it's kind of like playing a video game with my truck. Like, maybe this is the video game I would like," because there are not many gamers that we find at Diesel Power Challenge.
No. Right. That's true.
But they were into it. Yeah, okay. And then I want to talk a little bit about trailer racing, drag racing, and cone course. That day 3, man, that's a long day at Bandimere Speedway, but it is so much fun. There's so much activity. Tell me a little bit more about the heads-up drag racing. I think when those brackets fly through and there's people missing, I know it caused a little bit of confusion between the competitors of how that was going to shake down.
Yeah, well, basically what we do is qualify 8 trucks. As far as the drag racing segment, we qualify 8 trucks to present what would be a quick 8 drag race, heads-up drag race. The term bracket is where people get kind of screwed up, man. Basically, a bracket is established, but it's not bracket racing, where one ET against the other ET and try to run without breaking out and all that. No, it is a heads-up eliminator. The competitors are placed on a bracket or a ladder. The better term is to use is a ladder. And we use a pro ladder, and we square off the 8 trucks that are qualified the quickest 8. In this instance, we had 2 trucks that were not able to compete, or 3 trucks were out. Or bottom line, you had the trucks that didn't qualify, then you had qualified trucks that couldn't compete. What I elected to do was present a quick 6 versus roll 2 trucks that didn't qualify into the ladder. You understand?
I do. Yeah, and I thought that was a good choice, because I thought it let the guys who came out early and qualified, I assume they still kept their points or whatever feather in their cap for qualifying,
Correct.
And it didn't just push those guys out, because some of those guys, that's really where we saw the most guys go down was during qualifying.
Exactly. And that's just it. They had their points. They earned points because they did enter the segment, so it wasn't like a DNF or a DNS or anything like that. They entered the segment. They did qualify. They got the points accordingly, and then we ran the quick six, and I mean, that was one hell of a drag race, dude. That was awesome.
Be honest. From down at the starting line, did you really think Steven Lucero beat out Richard Coker? Because I know I did, sitting up in the media tower.
It's one of those deals, as a drag racer and people that understand drag racing. That